Hey guys, welcome to Solo ReacTalk. Today I'm going to be reacting to a video. Well, actually it's a playlist requested by a viewer. The first episode is called Korea Admiral Yi, Keep Beating the Drum. Extra History, made by Extra Credits. Okay. The other episodes, I think I might watch them during the course of the week. And yeah, let's see how it goes.
3, 2, 1.
The year is 1572, 26 years earlier. A 28-year-old man rides across an open plain. A group of military men stand quietly, observing. His horse stumbles. He's thrown. At first, everybody watching thinks he's dead. His leg is horribly bent, broken. But after a moment, he gets up, dragging one leg behind him, and pulls himself to a willow tree. He binds his leg with its branches, remounts his horse, and finishes the military examination. He fails the exam anyway, but 4 years later he'll be back. He'll pass, and so will begin the career of one of the most glorious admirals of all time. It's strange that this man even decided to join the military. Korea had known 200 years of relative peace, threatened only by the occasional raids from the Jurchen tribes on the northern border and pirate crews plying the nearby sea. The military was not a highly respected career choice for a man of noble birth. Taking the civil service exams and joining the ranks of the Confucian court was a much better way to achieve power and success. And yet this man, Yi Sun-shin, though he was schooled in the Confucian texts, had dreamed of being a soldier since he was a little boy. And so at last, when he had passed the military exam, he was appointed to a desolate fort along the northern border. While most of the border forts were pits of corruption, seen simply as a place to dump individuals who had fallen out of favor with the court, Yi drilled his men rigorously and refortified his post, bringing it up to true readiness in case of an attack. One day, the provincial governor came by to inspect the post. This was a man all of the fort commanders dreaded, known for his harsh punishments and brutal discipline. But when he came to Yi, he simply said, well done, and moved on. Shortly thereafter, Yi was moved back to Seoul, a sign of growing favor, and he was given a post at the military academy there, training new recruits. He was by all accounts rigorous, diligent, and incorruptible. And this was exactly the problem. At this time, the military academy was actually a tool for younger noble sons to jump up the ranks quickly, and for courtiers to channel their favorite people into the cushiest assignments. And Yi was not cooperating. So, after a short stay in Seoul, he was booted back to a provincial assignment. By July, though, he had secured a position running a naval garrison and was rapidly rising up the ranks again. But here, too, he was schemed against by corrupt officials. Many attempts were made to have Yi removed, but each one he parried expertly until, one day, one of his previous superiors from the military academy, one who Yi had rebuked for corruption, was called to his province to do an inspection. Seeing an opportunity for revenge, the inspector wrote a report castigating Yi, saying he was completely negligent. When the report got to Seoul, Yi found himself dismissed from the military entirely. 4 months later, though, he was vindicated. Found innocent of the charges against him, he was returned to service, but demoted to the lowest possible officer grade. He might have languished at this menial post, but at last his diligence was finally rewarded when he was brought back to meaningful duty by none other than one of his former rivals. One of the fleet commanders who Yi had served under while maintaining the naval garrison had been transferred to the northern frontier, and knowing that he'd need good, capable officers, he requested Yi be sent with him. Soon, though, it became clear that Yi was needed to garrison a fort on the Tumen River, which was one of the demarcation lines between Jurchen and Korean territory. Jurchen raiders roamed far south of the Korean border, looting and pillaging at will. Raids had nearly overrun the nearby frontier province, and so Yi took up the post. He drilled his troops until they were in top shape, and knowing that simply shoring up the defenses wouldn't be enough, he laid his troops out for an ambush and then lured the raiders into Korean territory. He fell on them with a ferocity and a swiftness they had never seen in Korea. Within hours, the tribes were smashed and their power shattered. They would never again be such a threat to the province. But here too, Yi was stymied by a jealous superior, and while the court was jubilant about his success, the official record reads, although the court recognized Yi Sun-shin's meritorious service to the king, it nevertheless decided against awarding him a prize. Shortly after this, Yi's father died, and being deeply rooted in Confucian ideals, Yi retired home for 3 years in accordance with the traditional mourning period. When he at last returned to service, he was put in charge of transportation for the court, but a mere 16 days later, it was decided that Yi was needed too badly at the border, and once again, he was sent north. He was to man a small island fortress. Undermanned, crumbling, beyond disrepair, he once again drilled its garrison, shored up its defenses, and week after week sent out a request to the district commander for reinforcements. Then, one morning, as the mists rolled in and most of the men were out harvesting rice because the military was in such a state that men on the border had to harvest their own food, the Jurchen attacked, pouring out of the mist on horseback. Yi Sun-shin only had a dozen men to defend with. He and his handful of soldiers fought desperately, cutting their way to one group of captives and escaping with 50 people the Jurchen would have taken prisoner. But by this time, you know the story. In order to avoid blame, Yi's superior, a man named Yi-il, blamed the entire defeat on Yi Sun-shin. He had him brought back to the capital, tortured, and put on trial in an attempt to have him condemned so that Yi-il could avoid any of the blame. But Yi Sun-shin did not crack under torture, and when it came time to take the stand, he said this to Yi-il. My lord, you are asking me to assume the whole responsibility for the misfortune, but you are wrong. May I remind you that you have always refused my frequent request for reinforcement. The defeat was not a result of my negligence of duty, but in large part, your fault. Therefore, it is not I, but you, who should be held responsible for the defeat. The court was stunned. Many of them knew of Yi's record and were inclined to believe him, so in the end, he was allowed to live. But he was stripped of his rank, again, and returned to the army as a common enlisted man, starting over at the very bottom, as if he'd never taken the military examinations. He was once again placed on the northern border and asked to fight the invading tribes, and once again he did so with distinction, until finally in 1588 he asked that he be allowed to retire. But storm clouds were gathering over Korea, and some, especially his longtime friend, a man named Seung-ryong, recognized that soon the country would have need of good military men. While Yi had struggled through his career in the military, Ryu, his childhood compatriot, who had been his companion in games of war, had risen to be Prime Minister of Korea. It was actually through Ryu's influence, and because of his subtle aid, that Yi had time and again survived the machinations held against him. Now, Ryu planned to see that Yi would take his rightful place for the war he feared was coming. On the next episode of Extra History, remember how in the Sengoku Jidai episodes we talked about that messy Japanese invasion of Korea? Well, that's about to happen. Join us as Yi and Ryu take on the Japanese forces, as we delve into the differences in government, technology, and arms between these two nations, and as we explore the first few disastrous weeks of this war.
Yeah, guys, that was it for this episode, the first episode of Admiral Yi. Keep beating the drum. The Admiral is a good man. The Admiral is a dedicated, competent man. But he's in a country, well, in the past, he's in a country that is built on corruption, on nepotism, on favoritism, on incompetence, and people just using other people. People like him, people like Admiral Yi, upright, standing person, can't survive in this kind of environment. Unlike his friend Ryu, probably he realized and saw that the only way to actually climb up the ladder is by playing the game. And Admiral Yi can't play the game. He can't play the Game of Thrones, if I can say that. And that's what you need to do in politics, in bureaucracy, in anything that deals with power. You need to be able to know who your enemies are, who are your friends, and who are your friends now, but your enemies later, and later they'll be your friends again. You know, so you have to know all of these intricacies, all of this machinations of court and state and security. You need to be able to navigate through all of them. The problem with Admiral Yi, it's not really a problem, but he was a straight, you know, straight arrow person. He was very blunt, very forward to you. He made sure that if there was something wrong, he was going to fix it, and he was going to become, you know, someone that would be respected. But that's not what they want in that time, you know. They want someone who can scratch their back while they'll scratch yours. So Admiral Yi was not that person. And I like his tenacity and his fortitude and his belief in himself to never give up. Because after he broke his leg, he tied it up with some branches and some vines, and he completed his test. Even though he failed, he still went again for the exam, and he passed it for the second time. So that kind of self-confidence, that kind of self-confidence and self-belief is very important. The only problem is that he's in a state that doesn't really believe in such things. Yeah, it was an interesting story. But if I were him, right, I would have retired a long time ago. I'm not going to deal with these corrupt people. I would rather go be a farmer or something, you know. But he stayed on until the very end. Yeah. Okay, guys, that's it for episode 1. Like I said before, I might continue watching the other episodes during the course of the week. And yeah, hope to see you guys then. Remember, if you like the video, please give me a like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. Also, click on the notification bell if you want to be up to date with my latest videos. Okay, bye-bye.